G'day everyone, I'm Daz, I talk footy, hence the title of the channel. Before we begin, click that like button if you enjoyed this video, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and if you have, you're an absolute legend, and I will love you forever. And if you can get someone else to subscribe as well, you are the true MVP. In today's video, all that I am doing is answering the question, who should your club pick with their first selection of the 2021 AFL Draft? It's as simple as that. I can't wait to get stuck into it. The clubs will be done alphabetically, so there's no bias. Let's get stuck straight into it. As always, with alphabetical order, let's begin with Adelaide. This guy interviewed really well. He looks an absolute gun and would provide X factor to a midfield and a forward line that is desperately missing it, and that is Josh Rochelle. Now, commentators can't seem to decide whether it's Rochelle or Rochelle, so I feel bad for anyone commentating alongside BT while this is going on when he plays early, because he's going to have an absolute field day. But Adelaide Crows fans, it won't take long before you're buying this kid's jersey. He ekes X Factor, he oozes class, and I'm going to stop talking like he's a bad pimple. He is an absolute gun. He knows where the goals are. He's an elite runner, has brilliant footy IQ, and like I said, he interviewed really well, which tells you that he's a bloody good character, and in today's age, in today's society, that is an intangible for footballers. He doesn't have a problem with going into state, and I think the Crows are onto a real winner with Josh Rochelle at their first pick, which is pick 4. Brisbane are up next at 14, and when we think structurally, their older guys are more Daniel Rich, Dane Zorko, and Mitch Robinson, and of those three guys, it looks like Robbo might finish first, even though all three had spectacular 2021s. If you're thinking to yourself, Robbo wasn't that great, go back and watch some Brisbane games, as he is one of their more structurally important players. Now, I truly believe that once Robbo's time's up, they are going to need even more speed on the outside, which is why Nazaya Wanganeen-Milera would be absolutely perfect for them. Now, some draft experts claim that he's a halfback flanker, but why can't he go to a wing and cause some absolute carnage? Him and Hugh McCluggage on wings would be an absolutely amazing combination. It looks like Keaton Coleman has gone back to take the Grant Birchall role, and this is a match made in heaven for mine. Brisbane are trusting Eric Hipwood, Dan McStay, and Joe Danaher as their tall forwards, Charlie Cameron, Lincoln McCarthy as their small forwards. They've got Zach Bailey and Cam Rayner, who's coming back, so they don't need a forward. Their midfield is set. They picked up Darcy Fort, and they've got Oscar McInerney, who looks like he's in ripping form in the gym. So Brisbane are in a really good place. And getting that outside player for the next decade or so looks like the go, but it wouldn't surprise me if Brisbane did trade away this pick to get points for Marcus Ashcroft's boy. Carlton have interviewed a couple of midfielders for their pick 25, which is astounding. They must think that Sam Butler, who would be the perfect first choice, would be off the board, but I am going to beg them to take Jesse Motlop, the Claremont small forward who has finals experience, even though it was a loss in the grand final. But he is an electric small forward who can be the human highlight reel, and he also sticks his tackles. Look at Hawthorn and look at Richmond. When you've got some of the best pressure forwards in the competition, anything can happen. Motlop can tackle and can kick goals, and he's one of the craftier players in this draft. Carlton fixed their midfield, supposedly, with Chera and Hewitt. Remains to be seen how they will go. I am really optimistic about them. And their defense looks set with what they want to do, and with Eddie Betts gone, they really need another small forward in there. They've got the twin towers in Harry McKay and Charlie Curnow. They need little blokes at their feet causing carnage, and Jesse Motlop can do that almost straight away. He's AFL ready with that Claremont experience, and he would fix a lot of things. Carlton have spoken to Mitch Nevitt and Connor McDonald, but I think Motlop is the way to go. Not going to spend too much on the Collingwood one, but it is Nick Dacos, a man that when he breaks into the senior side, and I actually doubt that it'll be before round 4, he will start on a half-forward flank and work his way into the AFL system. But what he's going to hopefully blossom into is a really attacking, headstrong midfielder who can have a ping at the sticks. Collingwood desperately needs some class and versatility in their side, and Dacos will offer that. We move on to the Bombers, who have got pick 11, and I would completely understand if they took Nazaya Wanganeen-Milera, not only because of the name, but because of the talent, but I am going to go with Josh Sinn here. If Sinn is still on the board, I find it extremely hard to believe that Essendon would pass him up. The only two positions I see for Essendon that are a real weakness is the other wing, not Nick Cox's wing, but perhaps some outside pace and a small forward. Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti can't do it on his own, and Nick Cox can't run a wing on his own. Tom Cutler has played some good footy, but I don't think he's the answer long term. Sinn is a beautiful kick of the footy. He's got a brilliant footy IQ, and he has slid down some draft boards just due to some niggles and the fact that Victorians can't play a lot because of COVID. The Victorian kids and perhaps the New South Wales kids are going to be the gems of the draft, and maybe it'll come back to bite the competition on the arse if Sin doesn't go in the top 10, but could easily become a top 5 talent in this draft class. I think the Bombers would be onto a winner with taking Sin. Wouldn't knock them for taking Wanganeen Miller either, but for this, I'm going Sin. It's going to be another short and sharp one with Freo, but if you've seen any of my stuff, you know that I think Freo need to take Jai Miss, so that's the player that I'm going for. A dead-eyed dick in front of goal. Freo do need a tall forward, and the fact that they've got pick 6 and pick 8 means that they can take a miss here, see what Richmond do with pick 7, and then go with pick 8. Now, I believe their pick 8 should be Matthew Johnson. They take 2 local lads that do fill holes, and they can go from there. Freo have also got pick 19, so they've got plenty of options ahead of them, but if there's one thing that I can ask of them, please take Jai Miss. Rory Lobb is not the answer. Josh Tracy is still developing, and Matthew Taberner is not a number 1 forward, even though he has made an All-Australian squad. But if Matt Taberner was the number 1 forward, Freo would have more success, but they still struggle to score so much, and I think Jai can help that. So Freo, please take Jai Miss with pick 6. Geelong up next with pick 22, and they need to draft for generation next. Now, Brandon Parfitt is already a contested style midfielder, so maybe that's not their priority at 22, so they could go with a more outside sort of midfielder who could also push out to a wing, and that is Campbell Chesser. Now, this man has slowly slid down draft boards because of a nagging knee injury and not because of a lack of form. Now, others have risen up the board, especially from more interstate, because they've been able to play more footy, and I genuinely believe that at 22, Chesser is a steal. I think he can be a top 15 player in this draft class, maybe even top 10, but the question does need to be asked, is Geelong going to waste their next batch of talent? Charlie Constable gone, Jordan Clark to another club, Nathan Kruger left. Geelong lost some youngsters in the off-season, and I don't think they can afford to lose any in the next one. I do believe that their next generation of kids starts this year, and this might be their most important draft in 15 years. Does that start with Campbell Chesser? Personally, I believe it should. He's a hard-running, hard-working defender / midfielder, and I think the Geelong Cats can develop him into a good midfielder. Campbell Chesser at 22 would be a fantastic way for Geelong to kickstart their draft. Gold Coast at this stage have only got 1 pick, and that is pick 3. So what do they go with? A want or a need? Because they'll want a midfielder to replace Hugh Greenwood, and that could be Josh Rochelle, who can play that half-forward midfield type role. Or do they go with what they desperately need, in my opinion, and that is a key backman? Charlie Ballard is a third tall defender, in my opinion, and Sam Collins still needs help. Which is why at pick 3, I think their best go is Josh Gibcus, an intercepting defender who does lock down his opponents first, but when he does get the footy, knows what to do with it and is a great thinker of the game. Gibcus is interviewed really well, according to reports, which is a fantastic sign, and I think that Gold Coast are onto a winner here. If the Suns did have more picks, maybe they go and grab a key defender later in the draft when you've got Lee Kalir and Rhett Bazzo available in the top 30, but the fact that they've only got pick 3 tells me to get Gibcus, trust your list going forward, and even though Hugh Greenwood is gone, you've still got Matt Rowell, who's coming back from injury, who can fill that spot. I personally don't think a midfielder is their priority. I would go with Gibcus. Giants at pick 2, the news that I am getting is that Finn Callaghan is a cert and they're not going to be trading their pick. Now, I'm not going to say that that is 100% set in stone. I can only go off what I hear and I trust my sources. So I'm going to go with Finn Callaghan at this spot, who is going to start his AFL career on a wing, in my opinion. It's going to be borderline impossible for him to break into GWS's midfield with the depth that they've got. And don't forget, their half-back line is looking really, really solid, with Isaac coming along in leaps and bounds, and that was no pun intended. You've got Connor Iden, who did establish himself back there. Nick Haynes, who everyone seems to have forgotten about, is back there as well as Lockie Dash. I know it's Lockie Ash, but the boy is that quick, goodness gracious me. So Finn would start on a wing alongside Harry Perriman. I feel like that was so many rhymes at once. I apologise. We don't need another white rapper on YouTube. I think Callaghan is a great fit, and it does make me wonder where Mac Andrew ends up. Could the Suns take him at pick 3? I mean, potentially, but pick 2 is the most interesting pick in the draft for mine. But the sources that I trust around the draft all say that it's Callaghan, so I'm going to go with Callaghan as well. So if we're all wrong, well, we're all wrong. The Hawks have got pick 5, and it's Josh Ward, and this just fits perfectly. He interviewed really well. He is a Hawthorn supporter. I'm not 100% sure how much credence that's got in the world, but it's a fact for you, and he looks a gun. So many people are saying that he's a Trent Cotchin clone, but every time I watch highlights of him, I think of Zach Merritt, and hey, I would take either of those players. Let's be brutally honest. One of them is a fantastic leader. The other one is a fantastic kick. If you can put those two together and get someone even at 75% that good, I will absolutely take it, as will all Hawthorn fans. They do need a midfielder. Even if Mac Andrew is on the board, I don't see why the Hawks would go for him, even though they've got 21 and 24. I think Josh Ward is a better prospect than perhaps the midfielders that would be available at 21 and 24. Would be happy to be proven wrong if that was the case, but Josh Ward, who is a good kick on both feet, exceptionally quick, and loves to have a ping at the sticks, is everything as a Hawthorn fan I am looking for. Alright, let's talk about the reigning premiers, and there is just one fit that makes so much sense to me that it's not funny. This is a man that can develop under the system and could break into that side pretty quickly, although he might need an injury or two, and that is Sam Butler. This man is so clever around the goals, but is a poised individual in the midfield. That dual threat underneath Simon Goodwin's system would be fantastic, and I don't think it would take that long for Sam to go past perhaps a Charlie Spargo or a Tom Sparrow, even though both of those men did have fantastic final series. There would be a competition for spots, which is fantastic. I know Goody only debuted 2 kids last year in Jake Bowie and James Jordan, so maybe Sam would have to wait, and maybe a project player at this pick might be better, but the fit of Sam in a couple of years' time with Cozzy Pickett and that forward line was too good to refuse. So let me know, Melbourne fans, who do you think you should take at pick 17? I'm going with Sam Butler, but I don't think Melbourne can lose at this pick. Their squad is already fantastic. Sorry, North fans, but this one is boring. It's Jason Horne-Francis, and he's a fait accompli that he's going to become a Kangaroo. Now, I seem to be the only person on the planet, it looks like, that tells North Melbourne to bid on Darcy and Dacos, well, Dacos and then Darcy in that order, at pick 1, let Jason Horne-Francis go to pick 3, and when you sign him on the 2-year deal after his rookie deal, just give him the extra coin to make up the difference. You're going to have the salary cap. Let's face it, you're North. You're going to have the salary cap in there somewhere. You're not paying a lot of A-grade players. That's no disrespect to your list. It's just where you're at, and we've got to be honest about that. So that is a very easy way for them to make up the difference, make your opposition pay the points, and go with it. But Jason Horne-Francis is going to start his career on a half-forward flank and dominate like he did for South Adelaide, and I've got every faith that this kid is going to be a gun. I am much more interested in what North Melbourne do with pick 20. Personally, I think they should take either Jacob Van Ruin or Rhett Bazzo, but North fans, you can let me know in the comments who you think. But as far as your first pick goes, it's a pretty easy one. Port Adelaide, welcome to the list of clubs that would love to have Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller, and like Essendon, the name would be perfect. However, I think you need to worry about the centre square more than you need to worry about the outside of the centre square, and that's why I think you should go get Josh Goda. Now, this man has got the size, the height, the build, and the pace and composure that would suit Port Adelaide perfectly, and I know your last big-bodied midfielder did win the Brownlow, and you wonder why would you need 2? Why wouldn't you want a clone of a good thing? Ollie Wines has really good hands. Josh Goda is quicker than Ollie Wines because he did start his under-18s year on a halfback flank. So don't underestimate the pace, the agility, and the skills of this man. This is an absolutely amazing fit. But if Wanganeen-Miller is on the board, he's going to go to Port Adelaide. I'm betting that he's not there, so I'll take Josh Goda at Port Adelaide. Thank you very much. Richmond have got the best draft class of a team that won a flag in the last 24 months that I've ever seen. And if they screw up this draft, it might be the biggest stuff-up that I've seen since they didn't take Buddy and took Richard Tambling instead. Sorry, Richmond fans, I had to. But at pick 7, I think you're going to go with Ben Hobbs. Now, Richmond were supposedly interested in Tom Mitchell throughout the season, and why wouldn't you just go get the Tom Mitchell of this draft? It makes so much sense. He's an extractor, but I think he's better than Tom at hitting the scoreboard. I know Mitchell had about a 4-game stretch for the Hawks from about, I think it was around 13 to 16 where he kicked a goal in every game, but Hobbs is a lot dangerous around the contest. I don't think he's the get the ball at the bottom of the pack and feed the ball out type. I think he's get the ball first, take that extra second or two, and make good decisions. I think if he is the kind of guy that feeds the ball out, he'll be feeding it out to Jack Graham, Trent Cotchin, Dustin Martin, Shea Bolton when he's in there, Kane Lambert when he's in there, Dion Prestia. It is a stacked Richmond midfield if they're all fit. I do wonder if he'd get a game early on because Jack Ross and Riley Collier-Dawkins are still there, but Richmond are drafting for Generation Next, of course, with this draft haul, and Ben Hobbs is probably the best talent there, so I've got Hobbs going to Richmond. Sometimes the best fit is the best fit at a few clubs, so Nasiah Wanganeen-Millera, come on down. It is a toss-up between you and Josh Gibkiss. If they're both on the board, St Kilda need to take Gibkiss because they need a key back more than I think they need a wingman. But if Gibkiss is off the board, like I think he should be with Gold Coast pick, Nasiah Wanganeen-Millera needs to be the player that St Kilda take. I'll tell you what they don't need. They don't need a bloody inside midfielder. So please, St Kilda, do not take one. You have enough. They do have some pace on the outside of the square with Zach Jones, even if he is the sweeper pace player, but he's got Brad Hill. Well, St Kilda have got Brad Hill, Nick Caulfield, and Hunter Clark. But Wanganeen-Millera on a wing would be fantastic, would cause a lot of carnage, and would be a classy ball user inside 50 to Max King and Tim Membry. I really like this selection a lot, but Gibkiss is the best fit, which is why the ideal selection is Gibkiss. Dougal Howard tries his heart out, but St Kilda need help stopping the monster forwards, and that is exactly what Gibkiss will do. St Kilda, your want is Nasiah Wanganeen-Millera, your need is Josh Gibkiss. If they're both on the board, St Kilda fans, let me know who you take. Pick 16 is Sydney's. Now, they've already got a lot of spark, but there is a guy that will probably be available at this pick that might be too good to ignore, and that is Arlo Draper. He is the epitome of X Factor, and I believe he should be on a half-forward flank. Now, he has had a stint in defense. He has had some stints in the midfield, but this man explodes on a half-forward flank. Did hurt his AC joint that required surgery, but reports say that he is going to be fit and firing for his first pre-season. And the Sydney system, whether he plays early or not, is going to be a fantastic culture for him to begin his footy career at. And even if he debuts in 2023 instead of 2022, he could be genuinely anything, and a guy that slips in the draft that may be better than his draft spot. But if you're a youngster right now wanting to go to a club with a good history, good culture, and develop your skills, Sydney might be one of the better places in the competition to go, and I believe that Draper would absolutely thrive. West Coast have got pick 10, and they are one of the more boring teams in the competition, and that's coming from a team that 3 years ago won the flag. It's hard to believe for sure, so they need some spark. They desperately need X Factor, and if you're thinking, yeah, Willie Rioli and Liam Ryan provide that, I know, but how much are we really trusting, especially Willie, moving forward? I really like Liam Ryan, of course, but what about a guy that can go into the midfield, create a spark, can go on a half-forward flank and be a spark, and even run on a wing up and down all day, and just bring about that 2 minutes of disruption and let West Coast play their game. And that is Neil Erasmus for mine. This kid is a utility and can play anywhere and cause as much carnage as he can around forward stoppages, but it would not surprise me if West Coast midfield were down a bit, that he was thrust into the middle in a couple of years' time, upset the opposition's midfield group. I think Erasmus could be one of the top 5 players in the draft, or like the 15th best player in the draft. He's one of the guys that I'm struggling to get a read on, but local lad at West Coast in that system would be a good fit for me. And finally, the Dogs. His old man was a ruckman, and he might actually be a centre-half back, but Sam Darcy is who the Dogs are going to get with their first pick, and he is going to get bid on really early. Now, the reason Sam is going to be a centre-half back, well, number one, the sources are telling me that's where he's being trained, and number two, that's the only tall position in the Bulldogs lineup that they need help with. Jamara Ugle-Hagan, Aaron Norton, and Josh Bruce are the three-headed monster up forward. You've got Tim English in the ruck, and Jordan Sweet re-signed for 2 years at the end of the season, and Ryan Gardner did do his best to help out Alex Keith alongside Zane Cordy, but they were exposed in the grand final, and it is fair to say in a year or two, Sam Darcy at centre-half back could be a better prospect than Gardner and Zane Cordy, even though both tried really hard last year. Darcy is the kind of guy that can play anywhere. He's got really good hands. He's a surprising good kick for a bloke that size. And if he has put on the weight that's reported that he has and he's bulking up quickly, who knows when he can debut, but it's going to be bloody exciting when he can. And he's going to a team that is on the cusp of a flag. And even if the Dogs don't get there next year, Darcy could genuinely be their next premiership centre-half back. And that's it, guys. Lucky you. You didn't have to see my mug in this, but if you did enjoy, please click the subscribe button, click the like button as well, so more people can see it. I did promise more draft stuff, and here it is. And I do have another draft idea or a draft prediction video that'll be coming out perhaps Sunday, maybe Monday. We shall see. Until then, unless something drastic happens in the AFL, I'm not sure what I'll be posting over the weekend. The missus is going away. I've got a couple of work things on. I'll see what happens, but until the next one, I hope you're having a fantastic day. You're all bloody legends. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.